We want to welcome you today and thank you so much for coming. We have quite a lot to cover, so we'd like to get started. Before we do, again, I want to welcome you all and thank you for taking time out of your day. It's great to see all of you, and we hope that this is helpful for you. I am Rebecca Larson, and my title is Economic Intelligence Analyst, and so I do a lot of research, market research, competitive intelligence, trend analysis, that kind of work. So you don't have to know the question, but if you have an information need, then I can work to try to get answers for you. And then also, my boss is Denise Stevens. She's in the back in the white blouse, and she's the director. And next to Denise is Joanne Ricca, and she is our economic development specialist. And then up here at the podium with me is Eric Irvin, and he does our GIS and internet marketing. So great. I'd like, if you don't mind, for each of you to take a moment. We'll go around the room and introduce yourself and tell us your business. So we start.
I'm the manager of Eagle Bakeries outlet, and we sell oral wheat Entenmann's, Sara Lee, all of discounted price, about 50% cheaper than the grocery stores. So I'm just trying to find a strategy. We just moved to Livingston about 4 months ago. Previously, we were on average about 14 years, so I'm just trying to do that business up a little bit.
That's good. And so we don't forget you and the youngest entrepreneur in the room.
Yeah, my name is Marion, and this is my son Liam. He's my shopkeep. We own a Timeless Tale bookshop in the Long Plaza.
I'm Kate Solzenbach, and I own an executive suite, and I'm here to strategize to learn more about how to market my virtual business for clients who are home-based but need a business presence through a mailing address, telephone answering, or meeting ads.
I'm Stu Maher. I'm a realtor, and I'm with the South Metro Denver Realtor Association, located in Littleton, Broadway and Mineral. And I'm here to get updated on the latest and greatest in your department.
I'm Tom Perrin. I'll be with Crowell Graphics out in the Design Center. I am a graphic artist and illustrator.
I'm Jamie DeBartolo-Mays with South Suburban Park and Recreation District, and just here to glean more marketing ideas.
I'm Kevin Starkey with FTN Capital Management. I sold my old firm in December and built a new firm with a couple of gentlemen from California. We're based right here in downtown Littleton, so I'm here to hear the statistics and all the great ideas.
I'm Noreen Petrovich. I'm with Little Creek Massage. We're over in the Little Creek building on Rapp Street, behind McDonald's there. And Sandy is trying to get some more marketing ideas for our office.
Erica Willie with Willie Ripple Events in Mayor. I'm an event planner, and I own Willie Ripple Events. It's in the marketing and that company.
Cindy Edwards, I own Fancy Mats and More. It's a custom framing and cross stitch, predominantly counted cross stitch. So I'm just kind of here to learn a little bit of everything.
Hi, I'm Margie Drake, and I own Colorado Frame and Savvy Stuff in downtown Littleton. We do custom framing and home decor and jewelry, and I'm just here to learn.
I'm Elizabeth Edrington. I'm a chiropractor, and I just joined Ancient Art Health Center on Main Street.
My name is Anna Salemo, and I'm with Jen. We're at Charter Software, and my mom owns a business and told me to come.
I'm Jennifer Schmidt. I'm marketing manager at Charter Software, and we're come to a number of these workshops, and then came specifically today as a subject of customer retention caught my eye, and that's kind of an issue that we're facing right now in our company, and we're ready to implement a plan. And Anna's going to help us. So she's here to glean information.
I'm Ida Hetler. I'm in business development for Convergence CPA Group, and I am here to learn some more marketing ideas and pinpointing the clientele that we're aiming at.
Well, it's a nice mix of businesses in the room, and we'll get started here. The purpose of today's presentation is to give you some fundamentals on building your business strategy. So these are ways to think about your strategy and things that have been proven to help businesses be successful. So we're going to be looking at 4 different areas for building your strategy today, and they're up here on this slide. We're going to talk a little bit about creating a profile of your perfect customer. We're going to look at ways to become the top dog in whichever market you're in, so how to have that competitive edge. We're going to give you some hints on developing an effective marketing strategy. And then the final section is going to be on how innovation can help you maintain your position at the top of your own market. So the first section is really important. It's kind of the beginning of any business strategy. You need to know who your market is, who your customers are, and you want to be able to define that in a way that helps you identify them. So each section that we go over today has a page like this, and you have a paper copy in front of you. This is called a playbook. Do any of you use playbooks at all in your businesses? It's a way to organize thoughts around something that you want to put in place. So each of them has the same outline. This one is on identifying your top customers and clients, and there's the discover section, the plan section, the act section, and the optimize section. So just 4 steps to kind of organize your thinking about how you can implement something to make your business successful. So we'll use these for each of our 4 topics. And to get started then with creating a picture of who your ideal customer is, you need to think about what defines them. Are they all the same gender? Are they in the same age range? Do they live close by? Do they have similar family characteristics? What are the commonalities of the individual that would be your perfect customer? And once you have that kind of clear in your mind, then you can think about where they are. Where can you find them? Where is the rich pool of that market for you? And then in this day and age, your customer is also looking actively for you, both in the virtual world and in the real world. So you need to think about how they are going to access you and make sure that you're in those places so that they can find you. The next thing you'll do is plan on collecting vital customer data. And I imagine that quite a few of you already have information about your customers. For those of you that don't, we would really encourage you to start getting information about your business, about your customers, because that's going to help you strategize your business and focus it to the right market. Then you're going to, once you have your plan, then you're going to want to act on it by communicating to that group of customers that is your top level, the ones that you really need to reach to stay in business. And then finally, once your plan is activated, you want to step back and evaluate. How's it working? Do you need to tweak it? So this is a chart from a research group called the Forrester Research, and they advise large businesses primarily, but we have access to their reports, so that's kind of nice. We get to share that same information that the big companies, Coca-Cola and Ford and all of those large companies have access to as well. And we thought this was an important chart because it demonstrates that around 2010, there was a paradigm shift in how businesses orientate themselves. Prior to that time, businesses were mostly focused, everything was kind of centered around their service or their product, and the activity flowed from there. But with the kind of solidifying of everybody's use of the internet, about 2010, and the coming of social media and the popularity of that, that focus on your own business and your products and services shifted over to your customers. And so now Forrester is advising their companies that they work with to really think about everything from the customer perspective first, and then let your products and your services flow from there. And it just so happened that Margie Drake and I had an accidental lunch together earlier this week, and I bent her ear about this a little bit because I was thinking about her presentation today, and she shared a story that I thought really illustrates this point. And if you don't mind telling the group, Margie, that'd be great.
So it doesn't sound loud, is it? Can you hear me? Okay. Sometimes it's hard for me to take the concepts into practicality. So when Rekha and I were talking, I was going, so what does that actually mean? And I gave an example of how a customer was sharing with me recently. She buys a product from us that we sell, but she originally started buying the same line from a store up in Loveland. And she had gone to an event there, and they had a special offering that was supposed to start like at 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock. Well, the person that was bringing these special items got there at 2 hours earlier at 10 o'clock, and some of the more, I guess she took it as the more elite customers of this store up in Loveland were able to buy most of the product before she was there, So she was really upset, and but she communicated it not only a little bit, I think, with the store owner, but also the CEO of the company that was there at the time of the event. She also then communicated it to me, not in a trying to badmouth the person, just talking. What's amazing is how much these customers know about the companies that we deal with. Okay. Then I get a phone call. I wasn't there. One of my employees told me about a week later that the same customer had communicated with the CEO of this company through email, saying that he had been to our store, really loved the selection, the quality of how we worked with her and such. And what surprised me is how integrated that customer was into behind the scenes of my business. That is just weird. And more, if you have an item, a product that is collectible, and with these blogs and Facebook and all of that stuff, it's like they know more of a lot of things than at least I do. I mean, they spend more time on the internet doing the stuff than I do. So.
Thanks.
Thank you, Margie.
Seems like a lot of customers are expecting to have relationships now with the business, probably because of social media. So they're not just buying something; they want to have a connection to the business, to the owner, to the product. So I think that's probably an important shift that's occurred.
So some of you, maybe all of you, already have a good sense of who your top customers are for your business. And usually this follows the 80-20 rule. in that 20% of your customers are driving 80% of your business. And so if that's the case with your company, it certainly makes sense to focus on that top 20% of your customers because they're the ones that are going to be bringing you the most return. You also want to use customer data. That's a powerful tool, and it holds many secrets if you take a look at it, and it helps you direct your business and your marketing efforts. So the more you know about your customers and the more data you have about them, the better you're going to be able to relate to them, to serve them, to have your products be relevant to them. So that's really important. And today, it's pretty easy to get a lot of data on your businesses, and we can even help you with some of that too. So our services, by the way, are at no charge to you as long as you're within the city. And then the last point has to do with how you kind of think about who your best customers are if it's not obvious, you know, if there's no obvious 80-20 break there. And those will be the customers that are your most recent, the ones that come to you the most often, and finally the ones that spend the most.
I think there is almost one other one too, is which customers are the most vocal. So while somebody may not spend a lot or come in often, there might be some customers that really talk you up as a business, and those are probably really important ones to be talking to as well, especially with social media or just out word of mouth kind of things.
Can I ask a question? Playing devil's advocate, and I realize that I work in an antiquated business, being tangible books, in this age of social media and e-readers and that sort of thing. But most of my customers, and the folks that spend the most, and the folks that, you know, frequent our business the most, are of an age and demographic that don't use those things. They don't use computers, you know. And quite frankly, they're a dying demographic. And so, I mean, it is just how it goes. But I struggle to think, okay, well, we'll just go online, and, you know, we're on Facebook, and we're on Twitter, and we're on, you know, we do all these things, and at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm not reaching those customers anyway. And what happens when, you know, the generation behind me, because I'm really the last of my generation that remembers a time when there wasn't a computer, you know, in every home, or internet for that matter. So, I mean, how do we move from one demographic like that to this young and upcoming generation when it's just, even I'm at a loss. I'm just at a total loss.
Sure. That's an excellent question, and it brings up a couple of points. Eric, feel free to chime in too. But in terms of, you've done a great job of identifying who your key market is and what their characteristics are. So they're older customers and they're not online very much. And so when you're marketing to that group, it doesn't make sense to run a Google ad or post on Facebook. You know, you want to use whatever channels are going to reach that group. The second thing that you said is really interesting because you know, the truth is that group is not going to be here forever. And so if the business is going to stay alive, you're going to need to bring in a new market. And so as far as that goes, that's going to take some work, some thinking and strategizing and figuring out how you reach a new market and who that's going to be. And right now, I don't have an answer for that, but it's something that we often work with businesses on, and our whole team will meet with you and we'll kind of toss some ideas on the table and just kind of get that whole process started. So, you know, if you have time to come and see us, we can work on that with you.
I think on that last slide too, where we talked about the customer list, it's important to use that as a tool to kind of segment the different types of customers. So you know that this group of customers tends to work better with traditional direct mail, or this type of customer works better with email or Facebook or whatever it might be. So, and we talk about it too a little later, is making sure you fit the medium to the type of customer they are. So.
So some of your customers might recognize this photograph. It's from an old TV show called Cheers, and it was set in a Boston bar that actually is a real bar named Cheers, and the whole show revolves around the bar and the interactions that happen there. So that is, if we were thinking about that as a customer pool, you know, that would be a rich pool if everybody in the bar there were one of your customers. So you need to think about where they congregate, where can you find a good, deep pool of customers that are likely to buy your services or your product. And then, as Eric just said, you know, different customers use different ways to locate you. So, or just in their daily lives, they use different tools. So, as you're defining your customers, you also want to define or be aware of, you know, are these Facebook users or are they LinkedIn users? You know, is this group going to be on Tumblr or are they going to be on Reddit? You know, is this group likely to do an internet search or are they going to go to the newspaper? That kind of thing. This is a very short and not complete list of, you know, traditional ways that you make yourself available to customers so they can find you. And there's a big one that's missing there. Does anyone recognize what it might be? Your website, if you have a website. So again, those are just, you know, kind of some traditional things that you do to raise your visibility out there in the market. And then customers are also looking for your products and services. And again, this is an incomplete list, but here are some of the things that they do. So they may ask for referrals. They may look at online rating sites. They may do a mobile search on their smartphone or their tablet. I'm not a marketing expert, and so I don't have a big background in that. And when I've certainly heard of word of mouth, but when I think of word of mouth, I think of a real world person-to-person engagement. And it turns out that there are lots of ways that word of mouth can happen. And a group did a survey of quite a good number of adults and asked them what was their word of mouth channel. And I thought this was really surprising. 81% of the people in the survey looked at online customer review sites. So that's a pretty high number, and you might want to be paying attention to those review sites if you have the type of business that's likely to be on those. And the next group, the next highest was speaking with people they didn't even know. So they're finding people who knows how and asking them about products and services. Customer communities that are virtual is the next highest group, and blogs is the next group. And then finally, 56% of the people, the fourth group down, was the actual face-to-face exchange. So it's kind of interesting how people are getting information, at least from those that answered this survey.
Rebecca, I think one interesting one, the social media is towards the end, and one that's just been out a year or two is Pinterest, which actually has a higher actively sought info rating than does Facebook. So for some businesses that are would fit well with Pinterest, that kind of shows you how quickly things are changing, and that Pinterest could be a really important place you've never even thought of participating. So And we can help you with that, of course. One-to-one is a business.
So the next topic that is key to creating a successful strategy for your business is how you differentiate yourself from everybody else that you're competing with. And we're going to take a look at some ways to do that. There are really kind of two fundamental questions that are important to think about if you haven't done this already. And one is your business falling into the commodity business where volume is what counts? You need to sell a lot or do a lot in order to make a lot. Or are you a niche business where your products are more specialized or exclusive so you can price them higher as a result, and you need fewer customers because your margin's higher? So those are, that's one question to ask. So you need to think about your business and figure out, am I a commodity business? Are there a lot of people? Am I selling salt and anybody can get salt anywhere? So the main thing is that my salt is cheaper and that's going to bring my customers in. Or am I a specialty business? Do I do something no one else does and therefore my service or product has a lot of value because it's exclusive? After you've answered that question, then you need to start planning how you're going to distinguish yourself from everybody else. Then you'll want to act to solidify your position in the market. Once you determine what it is, you want to stake that out and even, build barriers around yourself so that other competitors can't come in and steal your position in the market. And then finally, you want to continuously innovate your position, because if you're doing, if you have a product or a service that's really taking off, that's really doing well, it's going to attract attention from your competitors and you'll have people copying what you do. And so in order to continue to remain exclusive and unique, you're going to need to iterate what you do so that you're still that exclusive spot in the market. The other fundamental question that you need to be thinking about as you're creating your strategy for your business is, am I the kind of business that is always improving what I do? Or am I the kind of business that's coming up with something that's going to shake up the market? So once you've answered that question, then you can plan how you're going to be unique. And again, keeping that exclusivity around your business is what's going to help you stay vital and profitable. After you have your plan together, then you'll take action to introduce your product or your service. And then finally, you want to evaluate how successful it was and make changes that keep it going. So in case you haven't concluded this already, we think that nearly all businesses except for established businesses and very large businesses are better off following a niche strategy than a commodity strategy, because the niche strategy allows you to to put yourself and your own unique talents and skills and creativity into your business and make it your own, and then you are rising above the crowd when you do that. So here are some characteristics of niche businesses. They offer a unique or exclusive product or service, and in doing so, they either create a market or they dominate the market that they're in, because no one else can do what they're doing. And as a result, then the margins on your product or service can rise because there isn't anyone else that can provide that.
So this slide's an illustration of kind of the four quadrants of how businesses can operate. So up at the top is a high margin, down at the bottom is low margin, and then the left side is high volume and the right side is low volume. So we'll show you how this works. So if you're a high volume, high margin company, that's kind of the gold rush type of situation. Most businesses aren't going to be able to sustain that very long because they're selling a lot of things and they're selling them for a real high price. So an example of this could be maybe Starbucks. When they first came into the market, there was no one, or relatively no one, doing premium coffees the way they did. But you can guess how McDonald's and lots of other coffee shops came on board and kind of made it so Starbucks no longer had that. Maybe Apple to some degree is that way too with the iPhone or the iPods or some of their devices. They started off doing great, selling tons of them with a high margin, but now Samsung, a lot of other companies have come into that area. So a hard one to sustain as a business. The next one is high margin, low volume. So this is one that a lot of businesses probably could operate in some ways. So these are like, it might be hard to read there, but art galleries are an example of this. Or other kind of boutique companies that sell a nice premium product but have a really high margin. Although they don't sell a whole lot. So especially retailers that we talked about. And then one of the ones that's probably really hard to compete at as a small business especially is the high volume, low margin. This would be like the Walmarts or Costco. So they have to sell lots of products in order to make anything because their margin really operates low. And they continually are trying to lower their price, which means they have to sell more. So it's difficult to compete in that area. And then the last one we call the death zone because it's you're not selling very much, but that's okay because you're not making very much either. So probably can't work in that either. So ideally, for most businesses, you want to be in the high margin, probably low to medium volume area where you can compete at a real specialized way, so that niche type of business. Oh. Little animation there.
Okay, so the second fundamental question to come to grips with is your business one that continually improves its product and service, or is it one that puts something unique out into the marketplace, and we call that a disruptive business. So improving businesses tend to be market leaders. This would be like Procter & Gamble and Cisco and those kinds of companies. And because they've already kind of got a leadership position in the market and people have their products, if you think about Microsoft and everybody that's running their software on their computer systems, you know, they can offer upgrades to what they've already got in place, and their customers can be satisfied with that. If you don't fall into that category, then you have the choice to be a disruptive business. Disruptive businesses make things cheaper, faster, or more accessible, usually through pricing. And they appeal to new or less demanding customers. If you think about Microsoft being in all these corporate 500 companies, those businesses are paying enough to Microsoft that they can make big demands on the company. But if you have if you're using Google software free on the internet, you're probably just grateful that it's there. And so that's kind of a disruptive thing that Google did. They brought in some Microsoft-like software and made it available at no charge. And so you're not going to be as demanding, you're just going to be happy that you have it. And then eventually you're going to be able to crush the market leaders because you've got a bigger base. As you know, Google's starting to do with Microsoft. So here's a quick quiz. We're going to throw a couple of slides up here and see if you can figure out which represents a disruptive business and which represents an improving one. So this is the computer industry, and the black and white photo there is from the 60s, and it's an IBM computer when they took up an entire room. And then the other one is one of the first personal computers. So which one would be improving business? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's way back. So the IBM computer is the improving one. And then the disruptive was the personal computer, because that was new and different and, shook up the market.
Come out with one of the first personal computers that could make them improving?
Yes, they did. That's true. So they in that way, they were both types of business. Yes. Yes, they did, but I don't know if they were the first ones.
I don't know either, but I remember a lot of them were IBM back then.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. You can kind of go back and forth between the two. So these are actually all 3D printers. The one in the middle is an early industrial 3D printer. The toy there, the Play-Doh model maker, is the same principle as 3D printers. And then the last one is a personal 3D printer that just this month is available at your Staples store. So which one of those do you think would be an improving type product? The big one in the middle, yeah. And then the little one on the end is the disruptor, yeah.
Like the commercial sort of grade 3D printers, and if you look at the moves they're making in the medical technology, it's just wild.
It's really exploding. So there's a lot of innovation in the 3D printer industry. That's true. That's true. And speaking of innovation, thank you for that. These are not, this is just a starter list of a few ways that businesses can be innovative, and it's certainly not exhaustive. It's just, as I said, a few ways that you can do that. One is to take technology from a current market and put it into a new market. Another way would be to innovate within your market, so do something differently but in your same market. A third way would be to solve a problem that needs an answer. And the fourth would be just creative customer service. So here's an example of a technology transfer. The photo of the machine on the grass, does anyone know what that is? Very, very close. It's a minesweeper. So it's used by the military to find landmines. And it's a robot. Okay, so they don't have to send a real soldier in to do that work. They can have a robot do that. Well, the exact same technology that drives that robot drives the Roomba vacuum. And that's an example of technology transfer. Also, this is an interesting thing that Amazon has done. Do any of you use any Amazon services in your businesses? Yeah, so those services that they've sold to you to help you run their business were originally developed internally at Amazon for the same reason, to help them run their businesses. And they found that somebody had the bright idea, hey, we can probably sell this, because if we need it, other businesses do too. And this is just a live screen. Eric's on their website now, and the list of their customers, they've been wildly successful with this, just goes on and on and on. And the list of products is real robust as well. So that's somebody had a creative thought and said, hey, if this is helpful to us, it might be helpful to others too.
That's about a quarter of the way down almost.
So this is a Southwest Airlines plane, and Southwest, as many of you have probably flown on their airplanes know, kind of took a look at the whole flight experience and distilled it down to the basics. So they recognize that really the majority of their customers are most interested in getting from A to B. They're not as interested in what kind of food am I going to have on the plane, how does my flight attendant dress, where am I going to sit. So they took all of those things kind of out of the equation. Their flight attendants wear khakis and polo shirts. They serve peanuts and sodas. And they don't have assigned seating. They have semi-assigned seating now, but they don't have an actual reservation system that they have to maintain. And they also allow their flight attendants certain latitude when they give their safety instructions, so that it can be kind of entertaining, and they've kind of got a fan base of customers going. And if you go on YouTube and Google Southwest Safety, you'll see that quite a few customers have actually, with their phones, videotaped the flight attendant giving the safety spiel. And we're going to listen to one in just a second here that has had over 1 million views on YouTube. It's an amateur video by a real customer on a real Southwest flight. And in the beginning, it's a little hard to hear, but if you stick with it, you'll probably catch on.
We do have seat belts. They're not as dangerous as they look to snip into the flap and into the buckle to release lift up on the buckle. They should be worn like JLo's pants, low and tight across the hips, and anytime you are seated. If you don't like our service, the flight gets too long, we have 6 emergency exits, 2 forward exit doors, 2 over-wing window exits, and 2 rear exit doors. Signs overhead and lights on the floor lead to those exits. In your seat back pocket, this beautifully illustrated, multicolored safety information card. You may notice in that card that in case of a water evacuation, we have hidden under each and every seat of this plane a beautiful yellow life vest. Please only remove that vest when told to do so. To remove it, pull down on the red tab on the container under your seat. Open the container, take out the pouch, take out the vest, put it over your head. Already you look beautifully fashionable. However, to accentuate your waist, wrap that black strap around and buckle it in front. Once outside the aircraft, inflate the vest by blowing into the tube at your shoulder or pulling down at the tab in front. Andrea and Barbara are coming through the cabin now to check that your seatbelts are fastened, your shoes match your outfit. Your seat backs and tray tables are raised to their most uncomfortable full upright lock position. All your carry-on items are stuffed, crammed, shoved, pushed, smushed all the way under the seat in front of you, leaving the area around your feet clear. This is, again, a non-whining, non-complaining, non-smoking flight. Smoking is never permitted on board an aircraft. Federal law prohibits tampering with, disabling, or destroying any aircraft lavatory smoke detector. Federal aviation regulations require passenger compliance with lighted passenger information signs, posted placards, and crew members' instructions regarding seatbelts and smoking. Although we never anticipate a change in cabin pressure, should one occur for beautiful golden, I can't believe it's not Buttercup look-alike, designer oxygen masks will magically appear from secret hidden compartments above your head. When that happens, immediately stop screaming, let go of your neighbor. Pull down one of those masks until the plastic tubing is fully extended. Insert a quarter for every minute of oxygen. Although the bag on your mask may not inflate, your neighbors will. Both of you will be receiving oxygen. You may secure the mask with the elastic strap. If you're traveling with anyone needing special assistance, child, untrained husband, anyone not paying attention to us right now, make sure to secure your own mask first. That's it for the do's and don'ts. Sit back, relax, or lean forward all twisted up. The choice is really yours. We're going to be a little bit fast, but we're scheduled for a leisurely 3 hours and 50 minutes all the way gate to gate from here to Chicago Midway. Welcome aboard.
So anyway, it's hard to catch all of that, but the idea is that, you know, they're doing things differently at Southwest than the other airlines. Another example of a business that offers a creative customer service is a CPA, and that's the fellow with all the books and the adding machine there, old school, who gives his clients, when they bring their tax returns to him and they sit down and they work on those, while that's happening, he has their car detailed. So you come out of a painful experience perhaps with something kind of nice at the end. The officers that you see in this photograph are from the South Carolina State Patrol. And when they run seatbelt checks, stopping motorists to see if they have their seatbelts on, they sometimes will give them a Chick-fil-A coupon if they have their seatbelt fastened. So another creative customer service. As far as solving problems from looking at things from the customer's point of view and seeing what their problem might be, sort of the way Southwest did in terms of, okay, you know, the main objective here is transportation. This is a German company that builds containers to hold chemicals and especially toxic waste. So they sold these containers, and they were in a competitive market, and they realized they needed to figure out a way to be different than the other businesses they were competing against. So they took some time to strategize how they could do that, and they realized that their customers really didn't want to buy the containers. What the customers really wanted to do was get rid of the chemical waste. So they then turned their product into a service and provided all the steps necessary to get the waste away from their customers, and didn't just think of themselves as selling the container. This next section has a few ideas to think about when you're working on your marketing strategy. So here's the playbook on that. First, you need to discover your unique position, and then you want to plan your communication strategy around that. Then you want to act to communicate how you're different, and finally, based on feedback, you'll refine your message. Then another thing that you may want to do, and this may not be appropriate for all businesses, but sometimes it's helpful, especially if you're a one-man shop or a consultant, or have the type of business where expertise is important. You might think about establishing yourself as an expert in your market area, and that's sometimes called a thought leader. So you can think about whether that makes sense to do for your business. And if it does, then you can plan where you can exert influence and where you can start to have visibility as an expert. Then you want to act by contributing your expertise in the appropriate areas. So it might be on a LinkedIn group. It might be on a specialty blog. It may be speaking to a community group. And then finally, you want to continuously think of ways to offer your expertise and raise your visibility and become known as the go-to person in your area. So here's a little story about a company that did a nice job of communicating how they're different from all their competitors. And the business was a handyman business. And the owner's customers would always tell him how happy they were with the fact that at the end of the job, their house looked like he had never been there. He did a wonderful job cleaning up. And so he decided that when he was advertising his business, one of the things he was going to stress is that his business owned more shop vacs than any other handyman business in the area. And that was a way that he could communicate how good he was at finishing the job. This is a sheet that you also have in your packet, and we don't have much time to go through it, but if you're interested in working to establish yourself as an expert, these are some characteristics that kind of can help you with the tone and the content of what you're going to be communicating as your expertise is being put out there in the marketplace. So you want to be relevant, you want to be inspiring, you want to provide information that people can take action on, you want to be credible, etc. So those are just some characteristics to keep in mind if you want to become an expert. Another thing that is always important to think about as well is, people are using all different kinds of devices now to find your business and to learn about your business. And so it's important to think about how you design your message to the best advantage of the media that your customer is using. So this is an example of the same business, a bank, that it's their website on a PC, that's the bigger image. And then the other one is the same bank, what shows up if you're looking at their website on a smartphone. And you'll notice the smartphone one is simpler because the device is smaller. And also, they've taken into account that people do different things on the two devices. So if you've got a smartphone, you're probably wanting to know where they're located. And so that kind of information is prominent on the mobile site and not so prominent on the PC site. Okay, so here's our last section, which is some things to think about in terms of innovation, because innovation is going to help keep you at the top of your market. So in terms of things that you want to discover, you have to think about why innovation is important to your particular business. What is it that it's going to do for you? And then you want to plan to create a culture that encourages that within your business, with all of your employees, ideally. And then you want to act to, make sure everyone knows that they can participate in your company and in creating that innovation and energy. And then finally, you want to make sure there are resources for your employees to do that. The second row has to do with your competitors, because if you're in an innovative business, you're going to have people snapping at your heels. So you need to stay aware of what your competitors are doing and how close they are to catching up with you. So that's the discovery phase. Then you want to plan to differentiate yourself from what others are doing in the market. And then you want to act to set your product apart. If that's with a marketing campaign, how you're going to phrase that. And then finally, you want to be able to respond to challenges that you're getting from competitors in your market. This is a slideshow. It's 6 slides from a blog called Business Insider. It's published in Silicon Valley. It's a nice one for small to medium businesses. It has a lot of good information. And they had a nice story a while back on some tips on creating an innovative culture at your business. So the first tip is abolishing the hierarchy. And that means getting rid of so-called silos in your business, kind of the reporting up to the top person structure, and making it more democratic so that more people are actively participating in the business in a more complete way. The second one that they suggest is stressing the big picture. And this is the idea that all of your employees are engaged and on board with, what your big goal is, what's your overarching purpose for your business, and is everybody behind that, making sure that, everyone is in agreement and working toward the same thing. The next one is being tolerant of error and failure. Oftentimes, failure means that you're doing something. And the road to success has, a lot of things that don't work out. I mean, the percentage of things that hit isn't that big. You probably all know the old story about Edison taking 10,000 tries to get the light bulb to work. And so thinking about how to allow for mistakes and learn from mistakes and not punish mistakes is a good thing to do. Next is accept support, ideas, contributions, wherever they may come from your employees. Sometimes someone that you wouldn't expect to have a good solution to a problem comes up with it. Well, that's great. It doesn't matter what their title is. And then the last one, second to last one, is give everybody access to as much information as is practical. So the more information people have about the business, the more empowered they are, the more connected they are to the business, and the more they feel like the business success reflects on their own success. So if you could do that. And then finally, point out innovation and reward it when it happens in your business. So we're almost at the end here. Every year, Popular Science publishes a list of the breakthrough products. And these are just to kind of give you an example of innovative products that were on the most recent list. The guy with the backpack, that's actually an avalanche backpack. And so for hikers who are up in the high altitudes or in wintertime, that can save their life. So that was a new innovation. The little cylinder box there is a camera that focuses your picture after you take it. Kind of a nice flip. And then the bottom picture is of solar shingles. And they, what did they do, Eric? That's unique, just
yeah, they're solar shingles, but they're integrated with other computer systems, so it really optimizes the whole electrical process for the house, like almost a mini power station for the house.
So it's not a passive system; it's actually regulated.
It's really smart.
Yeah. That's our presentation for today. We just wanted to remind you again that we are available to help you with anything that you see in this presentation if you want to explore it a little further. So Eric's great at taking your customers and providing a map for them or providing demographic detail about them, and he can help you with that. We can work with you on your core strategy. If you're developing that, we can help you, solidify that, and we can support you if you want to, head down a path of innovation. We do lots of other things as well, but we hope that you'll come and meet with us. Thank you.